Welcome, Kyle, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Exhorder, this new album, and more things related for in general from the inside of the metals, and obviously more things related to the music. So, first of all, how have you been during the last years?
Oh, been pretty. It's been pretty good for us the last few years. Pandemic. That's life has definitely thrown us some curveballs, I'd have to say, in the last few years. But we're persevering, man. As a band, we've just continued to work on, continue the goals that we've had moving forward, and they're finally starting to come to life for us, and we're really excited about it. Looks like 2024 is going to shape up to be a nice year.
Okay, nice. Your last record was released in 2019, and it was a great album, Morn of the Southern Skies. I remember the name. So then you faced lineup changes, and after that, the pandemic with all the restrictions that it brought it. So it has been a roller coaster from these aspects. So how do you deal with all these changes? Are you going to remain with the same lineup?
Uh, Currently, the lineup that we have, fortunately, three of us, myself, Jason, and Sasha, we've been working together now since late 2017. So, I mean, we're coming up on 7 years that we've been working together. So for Exhorder, that's a long time for anyone to work together because we broke up so many times in the past. It's hard to have consecutive years where people are happily working together. So we've got Pat O'Brien playing with us right now. Pat is definitely our guy, and Pat seems to be really happy where he is. The thing that's difficult working with Pat isn't a personal thing. It's just having to work around the difficulties that have come to be from him having some legal issues a few years back. So travel is a very delicate thing for him right now, where there's a lot of places where we're not even sure that he can travel yet. So we've been fortunate to have people like Valdemar Sarikta and Apollo Exius help us out with playing shows in Europe and Mexico. And Valdemar is about to join us in South America, since Pat unfortunately cannot go. So we're playing, Mexico City, Central America, South America. We're really about to start hitting that. But moving forward, to answer your question, Pat is the guy that we ultimately want to be playing all of our shows with us. We're happy with him. He's happy with us. He toured with us in the United States, and we really had a great time, got along well, and the people just love him. People are so happy to see Pat back in action, and that makes me happy for him.
Okay. Morn of the Southern Sky was one of my favorite albums in 2019, and after such a great comeback and such a comeback album, I guess there are a lot of fans looking forward to listen to this Defecting Omnium. So when did you begin to work on this new record? Were you feeling some kind of pressure of making a new album after releasing such a great record like Morn of Southern Skies?
Well, I want to say it was right around the time that the pandemic forced lockdown back in early 2020. We were on the road as a four-piece. We were on the road with Overkill, and right before the last two shows were about to happen, we learned that they were canceling those shows and everyone had to go home because lockdown was about to start. So there we were, really just kind of getting started to promote More in the Southern Skies properly and do a lot of touring. And we had obligations in Europe down the line. We really just kind of had to put all of that on pause, and we said, well, we might as well start working on new material since we've got nothing else to do. So Jason and Sasha started working together. I was working at home with a drum program with my home studio set up. So we all just started writing, and eventually, I want to say, we decided that I was going to take a crack at playing guitar as well as singing, and that was something that I'm glad we did, because I'm happier playing guitar in this band than I've been in a long time. And Sasha, Jason, and I really have like very similar ideas as to what we want this material to sound like. So we started, to answer your question, in 2020, early 2020, writing. And by the time early 2023 rolled around, we were ready to record. So we recorded the album we started recording right about a year ago. And then I want to say by summertime, it was finished up and mastered, and we've just kind of been sitting on it, waiting for the right moment to release it. And that moment is coming on March 8th. We're very excited.
Okay, nice to hear. So now talking about from this first single, Year of the God, what did you choose? What did you choose Year of the God as the first single? Does it resume the whole album? By the way, it's a great song. By the way, so I can wait to learn. Remember, and always, obviously, I hear completely this in album, and for me, it's a good start to hear full album. So, but for you, perhaps is it resume a whole album? This first single?
I think it's a great head start. It's a great introduction. When we started writing songs for this album, we took a look back on More in the Southern Skies. Great album. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for moving on from our first two albums. But one thing I noticed when I talked to a lot of people was they thought there may not be enough thrash and hardcore punk elements to that album as there were on the first two albums. So we thought about it, and we kind of agreed with that. So we definitely moved in the same direction moving forward as More in the Southern Skies. We have a lot of grooving, doomy, melodic vibes on this album, but we did also make sure that we returned to our roots some, and put a foot back into the door, as we say, to our punk roots and our thrash roots. So I think this song is a great blend of all of that. It's kind of got that Motorhead kind of vibe that was a very early influence on punk and thrash, and it's definitely got the Exhorder attitude from the early albums. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to spit venom on this album, and then there's a lot of stuff that's going to be moving and grooving and melodic. So new single, I think, the next single will be out, I think, maybe while we're on tour in South America. So everybody should gear up for that one. That one's going to be pretty aggressive song. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Defectum Omnium is going to be your fourth studio album. What does this record mean to you, for you especially? Or since you haven't been in a band since the beginning, in a few words, how you describe each record and its meaning for this band history?
I mean, starting with Slaughter in the Vatican, that was stuff that we all wrote together as teenagers. I think one guy might have been 21 years old, and everybody else in the band was a teenager when we started in 1986. I was 16 years old. So we started writing that stuff together just to write songs that we wanted to hear. We were all listening to music like that at the time. So that's a very magical moment, very honest and pure as far as, just what we initially were. And then, the law came around, and I think we were less prepared for that album. So some of that was a little more hurried, but it was a very complicated album. I'm proud of the album. I just think it was, maybe we weren't as prepared as we were on Slaughter in the Vatican, but still encompassed a lot of what Exhorder was and what Exhorder was moving towards. So then we break up for 27 years, get back together, do More in the Southern Skies. And, we're much older, wiser, more, some of us perhaps more mature than others. I know I'm going on 12 permanently, but I think we made an album that we did the best with that album that we could under the circumstances. But for Defectum Omnium, we really had some time to reflect, and we decided to make an album that we wanted to hear, as well as something that we thought had a little bit of something for everybody, but mostly pulled all of the things that make Exhorder great together into one thing.
Okay. One thing that you mentioned a few seconds ago is that the Pat has troubles to play with you live for the all legal stuff that you mentioned. But at the time of the composition, all responsibilities of the composition sounds was through you, or perhaps or were for you, or you share compositions aspects with Pat?
Just really, Pat came into the picture after we had started writing the songs. Myself, Jason, and Sasha, we wrote these songs together, all three of us. And he listened to the songs. He's like, I like the songs. There's no need for me to do anything to this. So we said, great, would you like to come to the studio and play solos on our album? And he said, absolutely. Actually, took care of the recording process for the rhythm guitars, and Pat came in and did his soloing, and he really actually said he thought it would be a negative thing to come in and try to learn the songs quickly and record them for us as a rhythm guitar player, because he said they have the feel of Exhorder and they have the feel of you guys, and I think it would take away from that. But he did also say, how about next album we work together and let's collaborate together? So he wants to work on the next album with us in a writing capacity. And I think it probably was just a matter of, I think when Pat started working with us, his confidence may have been down some due to being out of touring and songwriting for several years. So now that he's back out touring with us and seeing how much people are excited to see him play and hear what he has to offer, I think he's back. I think Pat's back as strong as he's ever been.
Okay. Now, as you mentioned for the first album, all albums that you mentioned in the previous question, so it is very common that when a band is releasing a new album, they call it their best album or best effort to date. That's normally. So
Sure.
which can be understandable since musicians change through time and evolve as a person, as a musician too. But when you ask fans, sometimes they mention the first albums, especially like in your case, where you were influential to create a new sound with the called group metal from this aspect. So which is the record that you consider the most important in the Exhorder career? Is Defectum, and also is Defectum Omnium your best effort until to date?
That's a subjective question. I think that is a question that's probably best answered by the fans, because and I will answer it for you, but I think I'm a guy that my wife jokes with me sometimes that you only like the first two albums from every band you listen to, and I'm like, not true for all bands that I love, but yeah, there are some bands that I listen to where I listen to the first few albums and then I'm not too interested in the rest of it, and it may not be any fault of those albums. It's just how it happened for me. But I think coming in, to this album. More in the Southern Skies is looked at as a great comeback album for us, but still, Slaughter in the Vatican, I think, is probably the one that most people look at as our most important album for now. I'm not necessarily on a mission to change that, but I hope that people give this new album that we have a good solid listen and see what we're doing with the band moving forward. We feel like we've got more strong songs on this album, and the production of the album is really, really good. The mix, everything. We feel like this is the future of this band, and there's always going to be a portion of people who only want to listen to the earlier albums. Nothing wrong with that. The albums will always be there for people to enjoy. But we have something to say. We feel like we've given every bit of ourselves into the production of this album. And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised. The reaction we have gotten from people with Year of the Goat is really strong. And, you know, it's a catchy song, but there's going to be a lot more surprises and turns in the roller coaster ride, like you were saying earlier, with this album. So I hope one day people look at this album as the one, you know, until we record the next one.
Okay, now talking about from this new album, Defectum in this case. So what can you tell us? What can you tell us about the cover art? Looks very dark. So how do you choose, and why do you call the album Defectum Omnium?
Okay, well, that's a good question. So let's start with why we called it Defectum Omnium. When we started working on this album, we locked down all that stuff. The future was very, very bleak. It looked like nobody had any idea if or when things would open up again and return to normal, which I don't know if things will ever return to normal, but they're different now. But we're back to being able to tour, play concerts, go places, you know, without a mask and all these things. But before we even decided on the title, for me, like, the world is just in such a terrible state. People, you know, I don't think all people are terrible, but there's a lot of terrible people out there doing terrible things. I think people are very detached from caring about humanity. And I also think that, you know, that I don't think the world is coming to an end. I think that the world is trying to end humanity. I think the earth is starting to look at humanity like the dinosaur, like the mastodon, the saber-toothed tiger. And, I'm not a scientist. I'll leave that to my wife. But I really think that this pandemic, the virus, the coronavirus, I don't look at the virus as a virus. I look at humanity as a virus upon the earth. And the earth has created this antibody to fight the virus. So it's kind of backwards. I think the earth is trying to clean itself, and this is a natural course for earth to do. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not a scientist, but it's just a theory that I have. I didn't write the theory. I just agree with it. So defectum omnium is a Latin phrase which translates into failure of all. And I think everyone on earth is, I think we're all responsible for the way the world is right now. And only we can change it. And I just don't have a good, warm, fuzzy feeling that people are going to change anything. So, so the album is themed around maybe hopelessness, despair, apocalypse, the revolution, chaos, anarchy, all these things. It's not a concept album, but it's a very themed album. All the themes kind of tie in together, and at the very end, the last song has a little ray of hope and light for the future. So, what the songs mean and what they're about, I think, is definitely up to the interpretation of the listener. But the words start with me, so that's kind of where we're going. Is the world is dark, which is why we have a black and white album cover, because all three of our previous albums had a lot of color. Even though they're dark themes, there was a lot, red, blue, orange, all these bright colors. And I just looked at the guys. I said, man, let's do something that's dark, gray, silvery, charcoal, something that really just takes away the hope and beauty of everything. And let's just focus on the shadows and the bleak feeling that I got from looking at what's going on in the world.
Okay, interesting, interesting to know about this new album and the meaning of the new album. So now you are releasing this new album with Nuclear Blast again. So how are you feeling
Yes.
about working with this label? Do they give you enough freedom to work on your music, or perhaps the thing changed because as a lot of people know, Nuclear Blast entered to work with Sonic Music now.
This is actually the fifth album that I personally have worked on with Monty Connor, who is our A&R guy at Nuclear Blast. He formerly was A&R and senior vice president at Roadrunner, where we did the first two Exhorder albums, and I did an album there with a band called Floodgate. This is the first time, I shouldn't say first time, because the last album, we had a lot more freedom than we had at Roadrunner, but this is this is the most I've worked with Monty on any album, where he really kind of didn't check in with me a lot. He just trusted the process. He had a strong feeling from the demos that we had given him on the album that we were just going to do the right thing with this album. So I love working with them. They really gave us the ability to do this as far as artistic creativity and freedom goes. There wasn't a lot of input from their side at all. Really, it wasn't until it was Monty who suggested that we use Year of the Goat as the first single, because we couldn't decide. We have so many songs we like, and they're actually going to let us do 4 singles on this album. So usually they give 1 or 2, but this time they're giving us 4. So we have a good feeling about that. So when we were choosing the songs, we couldn't decide which one would be first. And he said, let me make it easy for you. I think Year of the Goat is your strongest song for a single. Let's put that one out first. So really, that was the only thing that he came in and said, I don't like this idea. I don't like this idea. And it really, when he came in, he didn't say, I don't like an idea. He said, I think this is your best foot forward. So that's we listened to him. Monty's a very smart man. He's had a lot of success with bands in the past. So I trusted the guy that I've worked with probably the most outside of my band in the history of my career. And I think he was right, because the song is really doing well. So yeah, it's nice to be trusted. We decided to self-produce our album. He recommended that we talk to a producer or two, and we did. And I think after we did, Monty kind of got the feeling, okay, I think these guys are ready to produce their own album. So we did.
Okay, interesting. So now, what are your plans after releasing this new album? And I also, we are going to have the chance to see you on stage across Latin America in the next month, in February, or in February. So what are your expectations for this tour, and what can we expect for Exhorder live?
I'm not sure what to expect because I've only been to Mexico twice and I've only played there once, and that was just a few months ago in Monterrey. So I know this much. I know since back in the late '80s when we used to get actual mail, letters, fan mail, before the internet, when you get messaging and that sort of thing and emails, we always got a lot of letters from, you know, Peru, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Mexico. Lots of mail came from there. People were very excited about our band. So even today, when you look at the statistics for our social media, still a very, very strong presence from Latin America. So we're excited. We expect that the fans are going to be hungry and crazy for it. And that's what we want. We want to go out and meet new people who we have not had the honor and pleasure to play for, and that maybe have been waiting a lifetime to see us play. And even more so, we're looking forward to seeing young and hungry fans eager for this type of music. Looking forward to it for sure. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of surprises, and maybe things might be a little more normal than we thought with going to new territory that we've never been. That happens to me a lot. Sometimes I go places and I'm like expecting something totally different, and it ends up being a lot more like home than I thought. You know, it's people, and people are that people are different in a lot of ways across the world, but people are still pretty much the same, I think. So that to me is the beauty. My favorite part of touring is going out and meeting people.
Okay, okay, okay. One of the last questions from this interview is now how was will be your set list for this Latin American tour? You will maintain the same list that you did from Mexico Metal Face at Monterrey, or perhaps you will very much because you are promoting the new album also.
It'll probably be very similar to that, but we are going to play a couple of new songs. Definitely the Year of the Goat will be played, and we're probably going to throw in one more because we have a single coming out while we're there.
Okay. Nice, nice. So, your sound inspired many bands, and of course, each band found its sounds within that probably at its time you were not aware of this. So, but now, after so many years, how do you see the evolution of thrash groove metal since the 80s, since the end of 80s? Do you still have time to listen to new bands with this, with the sound that you with the sound that you founded with Anthrax, Testament, Bronx, and you, like the first four of groove metal bands from the 80s.
I listen a lot less to this kind of music today than I used to when I was younger. My musical tastes have evolved. It's not to say I don't listen to any of it, and I have started listening to it a lot more now that I'm back together with Exhorder working. So there's a lot of really good young bands out there. That's what I really enjoy the most. How younger bands have interpreted what we did back then and are taking it on and doing it. And look, they're good. And it's not just guys. It's the ladies are playing great too, man. There's a lot of really good musicians out there that are female that are just killing it. I mean, we're about to go on tour in Europe with Nervosa. I know they're a great band. There's just so many, and I'm happy to see that. There's no reason why it should just be a boys' club.
The sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoy this one, like me. Terrific live, love this new record, love Exhorder since the beginning. I got my CD from Slaughter to Vatican. I remember when I got at the end of the 80s because I'm from the 80s. So love it until now. So perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and Metalino followers?
Yes, thank you so much for the support over the years. And for the new fans, welcome to the cult. We're coming, and we are going to do our absolute best to put on the best show for you. So we'll have old material, we'll have some new material. Most of all, we're going to have a great time. So we will see you there.